Tonight in 9 News, fighting back. A brave grandmother uses a baseball bat to ward off an armed intruder. Political heavyweights return to the campaign trail after their bruising encounter in last night's debate. Desperate candidates front and centre as the first ballots are cast at Melbourne polling booths. The Royal Children's warns parents to try other hospitals amid unprecedented demand. The supermarket spy cameras keeping an eye on you at the checkout. And the knee knock that could keep Big Maxie grounded.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Peter Hitchener.
Good evening. A brave grandmother armed with a baseball bat has confronted a knife-wielding intruder who broke into her Bendigo home. Joanne Gray says she was woken by her cat before her husband chased the thief onto a roof. Crime reporter Lana Murphy.
This grandmother of 5 has always slept with a bat nearby, but she never thought she'd use it.
I wasn't going to hit him with it, or I just wanted to scare him if I could.
And that's what Joanne Gray did. With husband Clint, they chased a thief from their lounge room onto the roof of their backyard shed.
Come into my house, you're going to expect to be getting something.
At 2:30 Sunday morning, Joanne put on her slippers and was confronted by a stranger in her house. Travis Wingrave was allegedly armed with a pocket knife and was holding her handbag.
It was just really scary.
Shouting at him woke Clint.
Stopped at the back door, went back, thought I'd better put some clothes on.
Then he was in full flight.
If the police didn't catch him, I was going to find him.
The 49-year-old was with officers when they cornered Wingrave. He allegedly refused to get down. The Bendigo man is accused of rifling through multiple cars and garages across 2 nights. This is not Wingrave's first time in custody, but he will be applying for bail in the coming weeks. The 24-year-old's lawyer revealed he was diagnosed with depression and is suffering suicidal thoughts. But it's his alleged victims who are losing sleep.
I'm frightened, and I've lost that security here in my home.
Wake up to your world, mate, and you're lucky the copper got you first.
Lana Murphy, 9 News.
The gloves well and truly came off when the Prime Minister and opposition leader clashed politically and personally during their fiery television debate. More than 1 million people watched the showdown on 9, which brought big admissions from both sides. Here's Chris Hillman.
It was fast and sometimes furious.
And had no authority whatsoever. This is a very important point. I'm sorry. This is a very important point.
2 men in the fight of their political lives.
Because what you want
it's only 2
is
pages.
that the cabinet
it looks
has
a bit
to
like
decide.
that. There's nothing on it.
But amid the sound and fury were telling moments. The opposition leader extracting a concession over the vaccine rollout.
Do you now accept that indeed it was a race and you should have secured vaccines earlier?
It was a race, Anthony, and we shouldn't have described it in those terms.
Light was shed on Labor's ability to lift wages faster than inflation.
So real wages will rise under Labor. Is that what you're promising?
Our objective is to have our objective is to have real wage increases.
And the coalition's capacity to keep a lid on power prices.
What we can do is ensure that we've got reliable, affordable energy and we're not switching it off with the irresponsible targets to reduce emissions.
Neither party intends to extend the cut to petrol excise. Neither can cut the cost of groceries. Both have sore points on character, and now both have a woman problem.
Do you think that the issue of the treatment of women within Parliament has been resolved?
We need to do what we need to do together to make the Parliament a safer place for women.
Why won't you launch an investigation specifically into the treatment of the late Senator Kimberley Kitching?
Well, Kimberley Kitching's death is a tragedy.
The two went to war over China.
When I was a minister, we put US Marines into Darwin. When you've been a minister, we've had the port of Darwin sold to a company connected with the Chinese Communist Party.
Not by the Commonwealth
So with your
You've been telling this lie for some time.
Your party with your tick-off.
No,
you allowed it to happen.
No, we didn't. The federal government had absolutely no authority over that sale whatsoever. How many times has Richard Marles met with the Chinese ambassador in Australia? He's your deputy leader.
That is just an outrageous
I'm just asking you.
And both had their moments.
You've been hiding in the bushes. Small target,
okay, we might,
there are 4 words you'll never hear from me. That's not my job.
Today, the pair were back on the campaign trail. Scott Morrison in the New South Wales town of Nowra, again parading his national security credentials with a pledge of more than $8 billion for a fleet of 42 new helicopters.
Gosh, yeah, here we go.
Anthony Albanese was mobbed on a visit to his old Sydney school. He came with a promise to lift teaching standards by paying 5,000 high-achieving students a bursary of up to $12,000 a year to study to be teachers, and felt he heard an omen in the winds.
Well, thanks very much for joining us. The bells toll for the Morrison government. Time is up.
Chris Ullman, 9 News.
High-profile candidates have faced off as early voters turned out in force to cast their ballots on the first day of pre-polling. Heidi Murphy's in Kooyong tonight. Heidi, voting centres still open?
Yeah, that's right, Pete. They are. Quite a number of them will remain open until 8 o'clock for most of the next 2 weeks. It's part of the AEC's COVID safe measures, but also gives the after-work crowd a chance to come along and vote. It means a long day, though, for the candidates and the volunteers, given that the booths first opened for the day at 8 o'clock this morning. And you might be able to make out just over my shoulder the 2 lead candidates here in Kooyong, remaining where they have spent the entire day waiting to talk to voters.
The fight for Kooyong now a one-on-one charm offensive.
I've got one of those. I'll do it.
Incumbent and challenger shoulder to shoulder at the head of the queue.
It's a steady flow of people and it's been pretty encouraging actually.
It's going to be very close in Kooyong. I need to be here and I need to have the opportunity to meet every possible voter.
Their volunteers out in force, the gauntlet stretching a whole block, and optimism levels high all round.
Felt very supported this morning. People feel very, I think, happy to have a choice.
I'm feeling positive actually, and I'm encouraged by the mood this morning.
A similar story for Deputy Labor leader Richard Marles, helping out in nearby Higgins.
I think there is a high degree of motivation within this group at least, and it seems as though people want to have an Australia which has a better future.
Pre-polling started at 8 a.m, the earliest, ready with their reasons.
I find it rather convenient rather than lining up on polling day.
We're travelling at the minute and we live up in the country.
I just wanted to get in and miss the rush. Missed out on the sausages, but anyway, that's fine.
This early voting site at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre is the only one in Melbourne CBD. It is expected to be Victoria's busiest over the next fortnight. And if recent trends continue, half of the possible votes could be cast before May 21, meaning no let-up on the hustings.
12 hours a day for the next 2 weeks.
I think, a lot of people are undecided still.
Heidi Murphy, 9 News.
A van driver is recovering in hospital after slamming head-on into a pole on Marine Parade in St Kilda, totalling the car. Somehow he only suffered minor injuries from the impact and was able to free himself. Clean-up crews needed cutting tools and a crane to separate and clear the wreckage. After days of unmanageable demand at the Royal Children's Emergency Department, families are being told to visit their local hospital instead. GPs also under pressure to relax their COVID testing rules rather than turn young patients away. Mimi Becker reports.
9-month-old Paris is happy and healthy now, but just last week she and mum Christina were in a world of pain waiting for more than 5 hours at the Royal Children's Hospital Emergency Department.
I walked out crying and I was like, this is ridiculous.
Paris had a prolonged rash and wasn't feeding, the on-call maternity nurse suggesting they go to hospital, where the doctors were run off their feet.
He just came out and said, no beds, no staff. I'll assess your child for 2 minutes, not a full examination, he said, to see, and I will let you know if you need to stay or go home.
The Royal Children's online live ED tracker shows when staff are extremely busy and wait times can be more than 4 hours. It stayed in the red zone for the majority of today.
It's all about making sure emergency departments are available to treat the sickest and keep them well and avoid risk.
With some saying wait times are blowing out as families struggle to get into their local GP.
When your baby's sick and first-time mum, you do want to present yourself to a doctor straight away, not wait 2 days for a PCR test to come back negative.
It's clear the Royal Children's is under immense pressure. The hospital posting on Facebook yesterday, we encourage you to visit your local hospital ED where possible.
It's not just the Royal Children's Emergency Department, but all hospital EDs are under extreme pressure. Victoria Ambulance is still facing delays, with time-wasting 000 calls clogging up the system.
Recently, someone calling us because their Spotify wouldn't work and they needed some music to relax, or, you know, more bizarrely, being swooped by Magpie. We're busier than we've ever been, so we really just need the community to think about before they call 000.
Mimi Becker, 9 News.
The family of missing Brunswick woman Mariam Hamka has come face to face with the man accused of covering up her alleged murder. Oscar Newman is free on bail, despite police raising concerns he could move the victim's body. Court reporter Eliza Rugg.
For Mariam Hamka's mother, brother and sisters, not knowing where she is unbearable.
It's just past a year since Miriam's disappeared, and we have no sign or trace or any update of where she is, and that's a tragic thing for the family.
The 36-year-old was last seen in April 2021 at a supermarket near her Brunswick home. Her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Toby Loughnane, is charged with murdering Miss Hamka inside his Brighton house. Today he watched from custody in prison as the evidence against him was tested. His alleged accomplice, Oscar Newman, is free on bail.
He's accused as being accessory in a murder trial, and sitting in court with you 2 metres away is extremely upsetting.
The professional pool cleaner was allegedly recruited by Toby Loughnane to bring chemicals to his house and to give him a lend of his car to dispose of Mariam's remains. Police say blood was later found inside the vehicle.
Did you help clean up the crime scene, Oscar? Where is Mariam?
Toby Loughnane is facing separate charges of assaulting Mariam Hamka in the months leading up to her disappearance. After one of the incidents, she was taken to hospital but refused to provide details about what happened to her. One of Toby Loughnane's friends told the magistrate she once witnessed a fight between the couple. I was in fear. Eliza Rugg, 9 News.
Breaking news now. Pictures are emerging from Russia of thousands of troops marching in Red Square in Moscow to celebrate the 77th anniversary of the Soviets' victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. There was no announcement in President Vladimir Putin's speech, as many had anticipated, but he attempted again to justify his Ukraine incursion, declaring the West was preparing for an invasion of our land.
За Россию! За победу! Ура!
Parades are taking place in 28 Russian cities involving 65,000 military personnel. Meanwhile, international visitors are lending their support to the people of Ukraine. Canada's Prime Minister spent time in Kyiv, along with rock stars Bono and The Edge, who performed an intimate freedom concert. More from Karianne Greenbank.
A surprise performance from Bono in a Kyiv metro station turned bomb shelter. The U2 star sang his appearance, along with guitarist The Edge and a Ukrainian singer turned soldier, was at the request of President Zelensky. His spontaneous show with some strong words for the encore.
I think it's one man's war, really.
Another unannounced visit in the west of the country, Jill Biden stepping across the border from Slovakia, where she'd been meeting with refugees. The US First Lady embracing her Ukrainian counterpart, the latest high-profile American to secretly enter the country during more than 10 weeks of war.
This war has to stop.
Alina Zelenska calling the visit courageous, as Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau hoisted Canada's national colours over the capital again, marking the reopening of the Canadian embassy. In the east, a Russian bomb has hit a school in Bilahorivka in the Luhansk region, where 90 people were sheltering. The regional governor fears 60 are dead, saying the chances of people still being alive are small. President Zelensky saying evil has returned to Ukraine as the world tenses for what Russia will do next. Today marking the nervously anticipated Victory Day. In London, Karianne Greenbank, 9 News.
British TV tough guy Dennis Waterman has died aged 74. He'll be best remembered as the star of The Sweeney and Minder, and for singing a theme song that also became a hit. Mark Burrows explains.
Just one role was all it took to secure Dennis Waterman's place in TV history.
I swear I didn't. On my sainted mother's grave.
Now, normally this would be OK for me, Arthur. But I happen to know that your old mum is alive and well and living in Frinton.
Yeah, well, never mind that. I've got something else for you, right up your street.
The series was called Minder, with Waterman as Terry McCann, the ex-con, streetwise geezer and bodyguard to Arthur Daly, played by George Cole.
This isn't for you. This is for civilians.
We never figured out what made Terry stay with Arthur. There was a quote about he did me a favour. He keeps telling me he did me a favour once, but I can't remember what the favour was.
Good boy, you remembered that well.
Got it, eh?
Yeah,
eh?
yeah.
It was one of the great small screen partnerships. Terry, the muscle.
He thought of himself as a gunslinger in a way, and that he had to clean up the town.
And Arthur, the shifty car salesman.
Extraordinary. Looks like some sort of flora.
Grass, Mr. Daly. Grass.
Everything about him was shifty, but it was only when he was playing Arthur Daly. There was nothing shifty about him when he was George.
A hit series and a hit song, sung by Waterman. It reached number 9 in Australia.
Just you keep me near, I'll be so good for you. Be so good for you. I'll be right by your side.
Before Minder, Waterman was Detective George Carter in The Sweeney, and for a while, the hardest man on TV. In 2003, he was back as a retired detective, brought back to run a cold case unit in New Tricks.
Still got it.
And there was a film in Australia, Never Too Late.
Now that you're here, we have a full set. We've got Jeremiah Kane.
The best face man you've ever seen.
You're outrageous.
But it was as Terry in Minder.
I would just like to say these few words.
A drink from me.
The drinks are on me.
For which Waterman will be remembered and loved. Mark Burrows, 9 News.
Now looking ahead to sport, Tony Jones.
Thanks, Pete. Good evening. Coming up tonight, the Blues skipper learns if he's run foul of the match review officer. Also, Big Brody gives us an update on that knee injury as the Pies also go into bat for an under siege Darcy. A barefoot Maxi heads in for scans.
If you go back and do your vision, 30 seconds before that is when I hurt myself, so that's why I didn't take the shot.
The Bont declares his intentions for Friday night. We spoke with him today. The Eagles come down heavily on their nightclubbing bad boys. Caroline Wilson is live with her take on their antics. The F1 circus feels the heat in Miami, and Sam Kerr, her magic again helps Chelsea to glory. She's one of our greatest sporting exports, Pete. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tony. We'll see you again soon. Next, though, in Melbourne's 9 News, love hurts. 2 warring exes locked in a bitter legal feud finally reach a settlement. Plus, a court-told accused wife killer, Chris Dawson, asked around about a hitman years before wife Lynette vanished. And the hunt for the heartless thieves who stole Cooper's basketball ring. The defamation trial between warring exes Constantine Avanitsis and Selina Holder has drawn to a close. Avanitsis took legal action against Holder after she teamed up with 2 other ex-girlfriends, sending a letter to his current fiancée telling her to leave him, claiming he was dangerous. Both parties read out a joint statement in court today saying they want to prioritise the interest of their child above their bitter dispute. Chris Dawson is facing trial 40 years after he's accused of murdering wife Lynette and disposing of her body. The court heard he asked around about a hitman and was motivated to kill to have an unfettered relationship with a younger woman. Tiffany Genders has more.
Walking towards a day he never thought would come, Chris Dawson and his lawyer make the slow and silent journey to Sydney's Supreme Court, where they were met by cameras and questions.
How are you today, Mr. Dawson? Did you ever think this day would happen?
Once a Newtown Jets rugby league jock, now 73 years old and injured from serious falls. The grandfather has pleaded not guilty to murdering his wife Lynette 4 decades ago.
This is Butch Joe is on the road.
October 1, 1975, just over 6 years before the mother vanished, Muhammad Ali fought Joe Frazier in the Philippines. Dawson watched the broadcast with teammates and, according to the Crown, asked one of them if he knew someone who could get rid of his wife. Craig Everson SC arguing it went no further until the footballer began an affair with a young woman in the early 80s. He was infatuated with her. He repeatedly asked her to marry him. He was motivated to kill his wife by his desire to have an unfettered relationship. January 1982 was the last time Lynette was ever seen or heard from. She missed plans with an artist to draw her daughters, who family say she would never abandon. It would be 6 weeks before the doting mother was reported missing to police. There were unconfirmed sightings of Mrs. Dawson in the years after she disappeared, including here on Victoria Road outside the old Gladesville Psych Hospital. Even though it's been argued that is not possible, this will be one of 3 sites the judge will visit over the coming weeks. Dawson is the only person that's ever been charged, but today the court heard there could have been others involved in the alleged killing and the dumping of Lynette's body. With a long list of witnesses to come, the high-profile case could run for up to 6 weeks. Tiffany Genders, 9 News.
The 14th Doctor Who has been announced and he's making history. Ncuti Gatwa, who was born in Rwanda and fled the genocide there with his family, is the first person of colour to play the Time Lord. He's most widely known for his role in the streaming series Sex Education. Heartless thieves have called time out on neighbourhood fun in Lyndhurst, stealing an 11-year-old's basketball hoop. The daylight robbery has devastated Cooper Parker, who put weeks of pocket money towards the ring. Elizabeth Moss met him.
A nature strip basketball game turned foul.
Mum, Dad, my basketball hoop's gone. And then I was devastated. Like, I started crying. I was that sad.
11-year-old Cooper Varka was given the hoop as a gift.
So I saved up some of my pocket money to buy a chain net for it, and that's what started everyone using it.
This is a neighbourhood basketball ring that everyone that walks past has a bit of a play and a shoot.
Yesterday at 3 p.m, 3 men called time out when the family were out. They were caught on camera taking possession of the prized hoop in the back of a trailer in Lyndhurst.
What people would want to drag like a 120-kilo basketball hoop halfway down the road just to put it in their car and take it?
The community is already raising money for a new hoop. Because so many people use the hoop, the Varkas are pretty confident those who took it knew exactly what they were doing and didn't mistake it for hard rubbish. Either way, they have one message for the men.
Why would you take it? Just give it back, like, as soon as possible.
Elizabeth Moss, 9 News.
Madeline Slattery's here now, and it was foggy around the city this morning, Maddie.
That's right, it was, Pete. Foggy enough for the Bureau to issue a warning to drivers. But if you were in the air rather than on the ground, the bird's eye view was spectacular as the low clouds surrounded the city. Since that fog burned off, it's been a stellar late autumn day. After dipping to 8 degrees, it reached 17 this afternoon. A high pressure system will continue to deliver clear skies and light breezes to Victoria. But further north, Queensland is about to be inundated with intense rain, and much of the state has already had more than its fair share this year. Brisbane has received 1,280 millimetres so far. That's 200 more than they usually collect annually, and 1,000 more than Melbourne's had this year. The rain from the north will eventually extend into Victoria, and I'll let you know when that's expected to arrive later in the bulletin, Pete.
OK, thank you, Maddie. Still to come in 9 News, petrol pain. Here's Adam Hegarty.
Pete, unleaded soars back above $2 a litre despite the excise cut. I'll have the details next.
War medals found hidden in furniture. The search for the rightful owner. And first on 9, new spy cameras cracking down on checkout cheats.
9 News, brought to you by Wonderlust plant-powered supplements.
Victorians have been asked to help reunite a set of lost war medals with relatives of the World War II veteran they were awarded to. The decorations, including the Pacific Star, belong to David Bruce Welsford, who was born in August 1924.
Anyone, if they can contact us at the Warrandyte Police Station, because these medals need to be returned to his family members.
They were recently found by a former homicide detective inside a piece of furniture he bought at a garage sale in Doncaster. The cost of petrol is once again surging in parts of Melbourne. Adam Hegarty joins me live from Elstonwick. Adam, what prices are you seeing?
Well, Pete, this is the worst and most expensive we're seeing at the moment. $2.15 for unleaded, a bit lower, $2.12 for diesel. It marks the first time we've seen the cost of the Bowser rise above $2 since that much-awaited cut to the fuel excise. So clearly the first real sign we've had that policy is no longer helping the rising cost of living. We've seen these prices above $2 in a number of suburbs today, Gardenvale and Elstonwick, where I am, this area here, also Camberwell and Hawthorn, and another $2.15 in South Melbourne. A real big concern for families struggling with that cost of living. However, Pete, I should point out that the average is still sitting around 180 cents a litre across Melbourne. The real concern, though, is it heads north from here.
Adam Hegarty reporting. Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the son and namesake of the infamous dictator, is odds-on favourite to win as voters go to the polls in the Philippines to elect a new president. The Marcos family fled into exile after a popular uprising 36 years ago. Known for their brutal and corrupt rule, Imelda Marcos's collection of jewellery and 1,200 pairs of shoes shocked the world. Supermarkets are cracking down on self-serve checkout cheats with cameras hidden in the scanners, catching shoppers trying to get a cheaper ride. Reid Butler tells us if your local store doesn't already have this AI technology, it soon will.
If you go down to the shops today, you're in for a big surprise. Did you notice those cameras?
I didn't at all, no.
The Woolworths cameras are built into the scanner and they can detect exactly what you're putting through the self-serve checkout.
Big Brother is just constantly watching us all the time.
If you've claimed your scan is something else, say a cheaper item, you'll be pinged. The checkout cam takes a photo of the product, the attendant is summoned, and that photo pops up on screen.
I was like, yeah, it was weird.
Woolies has quietly rolled out the scanner cameras to 685 of its 1,000 stores, and soon all stores will have them. New overhead cameras are also being trialled to crack down on self-serve cheats. Woolworths says it doesn't record or keep the vision. Coles uses checkout cameras at select stores too. Richie's IGA doesn't though. They have fewer self-serve checkouts and rely on staff to monitor transactions.
Always keep an eye on your 1 kg bagged carrots, because the moment that becomes your #1 selling produce item, that means people are just scanning it through as 1 kg carrots when it could be any other more expensive produce.
Experts believe the big price difference between similar fruit and veg is increasing the number of self-serve broads.
Take for example a red capsicum. Right now they can cost as much as 63% more a kilo than a green one, increasing the temptation to scam the scanners.
But those Woolies image recognition cameras can detect colours, so you'd be sprung. And while shoppers are divided, Carrum Downs grocery buyer Debbie Canty does have a point.
The food prices nowadays is high, but the more people steal and cheat the system, the higher they're going to go for all of us that work hard for what we've got.
And Debbie is exactly right. Often retailers don't have any other choice. They're going to increase prices to make up for those losses. And it is a bit of a vicious cycle because as the cost of living soars, so does retail theft. And that's what we'll be exploring tomorrow night in part 2 of this investigation. We'll have exclusive footage of daylight robberies from shops across Melbourne. Look at how that impacts your grocery bill and reveal the suburbs worst affected. Pete?
Reid Butler, thanks for that report. And in the news ahead, bush rescue, infrared cameras locate hikers stranded in the Lerderderg State Park. Plus, breaking developments on the daylight shooting in Melton, and the country town rallying round its footy team after a 400-point thumping. A man's in custody being questioned over a shooting outside a flower stall in Melton. 9 News can confirm the 36-year-old from Kurrajong is currently being interviewed by armed crime detectives. He's suspected of gunning down a man around 3 p.m. on Saturday. Police are checking if a love triangle is a potential motive. The victim is in a stable condition. The Australian share market dropped sharply today as Eddie Meyer reports it hit a new 20-day low.
It was a tough day on the market from the open. The All Ordinaries dropping almost 1% immediately and continuing to slide at one point almost 2% down. It struggled to recover and ended the day almost 1.5% down at 7,357.9. Driving this is investor concern over rising interest rates here and abroad. The All Ords is now almost 5.5% down in a month. Westpac suffered a slump in cash profit, down 12% to $3.1 billion in the 6 months to March, compared with the same period last year, although that was up sharply on the September half. It's blaming the result on intense competition in the mortgage market. Westpac also announced it's pushing ahead with plans to slash costs and jobs.
A helicopter was needed to spot 2 hikers lost in Lerderderg State Park. The couple followed a wrong track and couldn't get out around 6 yesterday evening.
Very fortunate the weather isn't as cold. We're not into the depths of winter yet, because the clothing they were wearing, they would have really suffered from the cold had it set in.
Due to the rough terrain, police were unable to winch them out, so SES crews escorted them to safety. She was given a slim chance of survival after being left inside a minivan for 6 hours at a Queensland childcare centre. But tonight, 3-year-old Nevaeh Austin will be sleeping in her own bed after she was discharged from hospital. The toddler has spent the past 5 days undergoing treatment and police investigations are continuing. A community in Victoria's northeast is throwing its arms around its local footy team after it lost by more than 400 points. The Waganya Lions president told Maggie Rayworth he's proud of all who stepped in when 21 of their players caught COVID.
The Waganya Lions, a small country club, but the heart and soul of a community.
A community place where we all meet. My grandkids play here. I played here when I was young.
We're passionate about it, and so are a lot of the other people.
The Lions just had the biggest loss in club history. At full time, the scoreboard showed a staggering 430-point loss. But to this proud team, it was a sign of strength.
We haven't hid the fact that it was going to be a tough year, and to take the easy way out just wasn't an option for us.
In the days leading up to the clash with top-of-the-ladder side Beechworth, 22 players were struck down with COVID. That's when volunteers and reserve players took one for the team.
You could say it was an experience to be on the other end of a score like that, but look, we knew what we were getting up against. We knew it was coming.
It all started last weekend when the club hosted a Wild Wild West night. The virus swept through, infecting nearly all who attended. Today, the Bushrangers praised the Lions for their courage, saying last year it lost to Waganya. Due to the Lions' financial situation, the club decided not to forfeit. Home games are a huge source of income, and the loss would have hit the club hard.
Not so worried about the result. I just want to, see the club keep functioning. Just passionate about that.
The team determined to hit the field again next weekend. In Waganya, Maggie Rayworth, 9 News.
What a great story. Now returning with sport, Tony Jones.
Forget St Kilda, forget Collingwood, we've got to jump on that bandwagon.
Absolutely.
Well, when I say bandwagon, anyway, they'll come good, Pete. Thanks for that. The match review officer has handed down his verdict on the Blues skipper. We're live with those details. Also, a shoeless Maxi opens up about his injury concern. Big Brody updates us on the knee injury that has him sidelined. And Sam the Magnificent propels the Blues to another title. Melbourne has allayed fears over skipper Max Gawn despite sending him in for scans on a problem knee. The Demons reckon he might still be okay to tackle West Coast in Perth on Sunday, with Gawn himself adamant he has no plans to rest. Ed and Woolley reports.
If you'd been looking at his bare feet, you might have missed this was the Melbourne captain heading in for scans.
I felt a little bit sore in the second quarter, but I managed to play at the half and Yeah, I've woken up pretty good this morning.
Max Gawn hurt in this contest with Paddy Ryder, but even after a spate of recent injuries, he doesn't want any sort of knee-jerk reaction on ruck rules.
I think the Mark Pidnett one was a little bit concerning, but the Brodie Grundy one was a little bit more of a freak accident for mine, so I'm pretty confident where the ruck stuff is.
While the Eagles might present the perfect chance to give the skipper some rest, he's having none of it.
I'll be pushing for no. No, like I've woken up really good this morning, so I didn't want to do this today, but they said to go in and make sure.
As for Gawn's out-of-contract understudy, the Eagles today put on record their interest in Luke Jackson.
Look, if someone like Luke was available, you'd be silly to sit on your hands and not attempt to entice him to the club.
Marcus Bontempelli, meanwhile, has detailed the management of his recent ankle troubles.
What was it about the last week? I guess tipped it over the edge for you, Marcus. I know you've been battling it for a while.
Oh, you know, there's been little bits and pieces, I guess, and it just probably got to the point where it was probably the short turnaround sort of cooked me a little bit.
Having missed the Dogs' loss to Port Adelaide, he's now determined to be fit for Friday night's clash with Collingwood.
This happens, you know, sort of throughout your seasons and your career that there's going to be times where you might have to miss. So it's unfortunate, obviously with the result too, but yeah, plan to be there on Friday.
The Bont will be tested later in the week. And the Brownlow medal bid of Carlton skipper Patrick Cripps remains intact tonight. He's been cleared of any wrongdoing over this tackle in the Blues win over the Crows last night. Adelaide's Lockie Murphy was subbed out with a neck complaint, but the match review officer Michael Christian deemed that Cripps' actions did not constitute a reportable offence. So a common sense decision. He's free to tackle GWS this weekend. Tony?
Sanity prevails, Ayrton. All right, good work. Thanks for that. Darcy Moore's Collingwood teammates believe his below-par effort against Richmond was a one-off. The big money magpie is in the gun for loose defending, but teammate Jeremy Howe says the onus shouldn't fall on one person. More from Braden Ingram.
With Darcy Moore among a handful of pies not present at this afternoon's light session, it was up to others to fly the flag on his behalf.
The way that Darcy plays, he reads the ball better than most, and I feel like, sometimes the ball bounces our way and sometimes it doesn't.
But that approach has been exposed, most recently by Tom Lynch's 6-goal haul, with Moore slammed for giving the Star Tiger far too much space.
He has the talent and the intelligence and the football smarts to know, but he did not adapt quick enough.
Fellow defender Jeremy Howe calling on the entire backline to help Moore out.
It's one of those days where, unfortunately, he made a couple of errors by decision, and so did we all down there. So, we'll keep backing Darcy in.
With Brodie Grundy sidelined with that serious knee injury, the Pies' ruck stocks have been sorely tested. And while he is back on deck here at Olympic Park, it's still a long road to recovery. The Magpies star severely hobbled, with his return likely months away.
I've got the trucky pants on today, excuse me. It's just easier with the brace, so yeah, going the best I can. Started my third week this week in rehab, and looking to be back as soon as possible to help the team.
A slower than hoped recovery from finger surgery will delay Jordan Roughhead's bid to play, but Isaac Quaynor has been cleared to suit up on Friday night despite dislocating his finger.
We're obviously going to have to dish up a better performance and a more consistent performance this week to be able to compete with the Dogs.
Braden Ingram, 9 News.
Those 7 West Coast Eagles players caught night clubbing at the height of their club's COVID crisis have each been fined $5,000. Caroline Wilson joins us, head of Footy Classified tonight. Carol,
Tony,
they got off lightly?
Yes, they did, because in fact it's half the fine's been suspended, so they've actually only been fined $2,500. The maximum they're allowed under the Player Association rules is $5,000. Players Association are still disappointed in the fines. I can't understand why, Tony. There is a collective issue at that footy club. It's much bigger than players not taking COVID protocols seriously. But when seven players who are getting together with other teammates for a drink decide to go out when they've been told not to is just an anathema to me. I mean, other teams have had players miss with illness. Fremantle had 5 players missing. So there's a lot more going on at West Coast than just injury and illness. And it's to do with list management, conditioning, a disconnect clearly between players and coach. But it's just a symbolic, I guess, of the rest of it. It has been pointed out there were Richmond players at that nightclub too, Tony. but when you're winning, it's just not as much of an issue.
Well, that's right, and also the state they're in means they couldn't have been suspended, and that was the preferred option of West Coast, was to give them a week, but they couldn't do it because of their plight.
No, they couldn't, and as Trevor Nisbet pointed out today, they didn't break the law, they just broke team rules, and there really is a problem at the Eagles, and it's just really weird to see the behaviour, the game style, the body language that we're seeing at the moment. It's not something we're used to.
Not half as weird as the Players Association, not condemning it, that's for sure. So, Caro, 8:45 tonight, an early one for you.
Yes, we'll be coming to you live, Tony. A couple of big stories, a couple of strong opinions from Kane Corns. I'm looking forward to it.
No, surely not. You jest. All right, good on you, Caro. Thanks for
Thanks,
that.
Tony.
Thank you. Soccer now, and Aussie hero Sam Kerr has reinforced her status as one of the world's best by producing a sheer piece of brilliance to help Chelsea to yet another trophy win, a third successive Super League title. Look at this.
But here she is looking for another one and gets another one. And the title is surely now Chelsea's.
Sam scored twice in the 4-2 defeat of Manchester United. Both were volleys, but that one there really was something special, wasn't it? Miami's first ever taste of Formula One racing has provided a thrilling finish. Max Verstappen claiming the honours in what became a hard-fought win over Charles Leclerc. The gap tightening after a Lando Norris crash on lap 41 brought out the safety car.
Of Sergio Perez in third place, and oh dear, Lando Norris has made contact with the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly. Sebastian Vettel slows down.
It was a horrible weekend for Daniel Ricciardo, a 5-second penalty pushing him down to 13th. And that's sport for tonight, Pete.
OK, thank you, Tony. Time to check back with Maddie now. Some more glorious autumn sunshine on the way tomorrow, do you think?
Yes, I think so, Pete. Blue skies will be back, but before that, we can expect a particularly chilly night. The city's forecast to drop to 6 degrees, but it'll be colder for most of Melbourne and indeed Victoria. I'll have the full Tuesday forecast for you next. Hello again. Melbourne began the day under a blanket of fog. Reduced visibility made driving dangerous, and commuting by water was also a challenge, but the Westgate Punt ferry service ploughed on regardless. The fog burnt off quite quickly, revealing blue skies, and after dipping to 8 degrees, the city peaked at 17. Yarra Glen and Avalon fell to just 4 degrees this morning, but Moorabbin stayed in double figures, only dropping to 10 before reaching 16. Away from the Alps, Rutherglen was both the coldest and warmest spot today. It dipped to just 1 degree this morning and then rebounded to reach 20. A high pressure system is keeping much of the country dry and calm, but in Queensland a trough is triggering showers and storms, and the system is expected to intensify as it's fed by warm air coming off the Coral Sea. Tomorrow the heaviest falls are forecast for the Central West District with 100 to 150 millimetres. Then on Wednesday it's expected to contract to the coast with similar totals from Mackay to Ingham, and by Wednesday evening some of that rain is likely to move into northern Victoria. It'll contract to eastern districts on Thursday, and some heavy falls are forecast with 30 to 35 millimetres in the northeast around Shepparton and Wodonga. So we do need to make the most of this beautiful sunny weather while it's here. There'll be more of it tomorrow, but again a chilly morning with widespread minimums of 3 and 4 degrees. Daytime temperatures will be a little higher than today, with maximums in the low 20s in the far north. Once again, winds will be light, so it'll be even nicer than today. Melbourne is also in for a chilly night, especially northern and outer suburbs. Yarra Glen is forecast to drop to 3 degrees, Ringwood and Epping 4, and there's likely to be widespread morning fog and frost. But after that, it'll be another beautiful sunny day with maximums in the high teens and up to 20 at Yarra Glen and Ringwood. For the city, a low of 6 and a sunny top of 19. It's heading for 20 on Wednesday, but cloud will begin to stream in from the north, so it won't be such a cold morning. A low of 9. Thursday should be Melbourne's wettest day, up to 10 millimetres and a top of 18. Then we can expect warmer days and warmer nights. A low of 13 and a top of 21 on Friday with light showers. 16 to 21 on Saturday with showers continuing. Just a sprinkle on Sunday, 19 degrees, and then a cool change, 16 degrees next Monday. Tomorrow is shaping up as the pick of the week. After a low of 6 degrees, the city is heading for 19. Once again, morning fog will clear for beautiful blue skies, and these certainly are autumn days at their best. Pete?
Absolutely beautiful, aren't they? Thank you, Maddie. And Melbourne, that's what's news this Monday. Tracy's next with a current affair. We leave you with more of Minder star Dennis Waterman. Good night.